the main event here, which is Weapons, the follow-up by Zach Cregger to his breakout hit Barbarian. Zach, you're going first on this because I know where you're at. You texted me what you thought of the movie and said, I'm breaking rules here, but I need to text you about this.
Well,
What did you
okay.
think of? Tell me about Weapons and what you thought.
I want to clarify because we don't share what we think of movies beforehand. I did text. I'm not gonna. I'll say a little later what I texted Terry, but I don't think I spoiled necessarily what I thought of the movie. Well, okay. Let's just explain the movie a little bit. I also think it's a great movie directed by a Zach. You know, we haven't had a Zach great cinematic experience, I think, in a while, since maybe Zach Braff. Or Zach. I don't know. Do we have other Zach directors? Anyway, okay. Weapons. Yes, this was on my most anticipated movie of the year list, in part because I thought the marketing for this movie was really awesome. Like, I remember back in March, like seeing that 45-second teaser for it, and it gave you the website, like wherearethekids.com or whatever. Like, that shit was really cool. I didn't even realize it was a movie. But it didn't show Josh Brolin or Julia Garner in the teaser, which was really cool. So I was kind of high on this movie, even though it was totally in the dark. I really didn't know anything about it. And I'm pleased to report that this movie rocks. Zach Cregger, very cool guy. He directed Barbarian. I like Barbarian a lot. This is his follow-up to Barbarian. It has a bigger budget, a bigger cast. It's a bigger movie. It stars Julia Garner as a teacher named Justine. And at the beginning of the movie, voiceover narration explains that her third grade class has disappeared. They randomly ran out of their houses in the middle of the night at 2:17 a.m., and they were never seen again. And so the town sort of turns on this teacher because they suspect her, I don't know, some sort of sorcery or who knows what. She has to defend herself. In the meantime, you get characters like Josh Brolin, who's a father of one of the kids that has gone missing. And he's kind of leading this vigilante-esque sort of neighborhood watch program, like out of, Little Children or something, really trying to find answers to it. Meanwhile, Julia Garner is drowning her sorrows in alcohol, which apparently is what I'm doing right now. And the movie kind of skates around what exactly happened. It's kind of interesting. The narration of the movie says that that's not the kids disappearing is not the most interesting part of the story. The story actually begins in the aftermath. This movie has a really unique structure. And this is where it becomes difficult to talk about this movie because I had no idea what the structure of this movie was going into it. And I suggest that if you haven't really seen the movie or know anything about it, you should probably stop listening now, which is not a great thing to say for our podcast. But you want to go into this movie blind. This movie has a really interesting structure, which is that it takes about, 6 of the characters in this story and basically has each of their sort of interpretations of events. But it's not exactly like Rashomon. Rashomon was, famously where one character has a different sort of interpretation of what happens, and then it's kind of, contradicted by another character. In this movie, it's one character who sees their version of events, and then it's another character who kind of has a different story to tell in a way. The chronology is fractured a little bit, but as you sort of get into the rhythm of the movie, it establishes a really nice pace to it. This movie is bonkers. It goes in some really crazy directions. And one of the things I really like that Zach Cregger does in this movie is it is a scary movie. It's an uncomfortable movie. It's also kind of a funny movie at times. And a lot of people online have been talking about how the last 15 minutes of this movie are pretty raucous. And my theater laughed at it too. But it also has some moments of humor interjected in the middle and earlier in the movie. There's long stretches of this movie where there's not really any horror in it. It's more of a character study. You really get to know kind of, especially like Julia Garner, you get to know the suffering that she's really going through, trying to deal with the fact that, ostensibly she loved being a teacher, and now the town has gone totally against her. We get some other perspectives in the movie that I won't necessarily say out loud, but they're kind of from unexpected sources. And sometimes when the movie shifts to that different perspective, it's from a really minor character that you don't expect to have such significance in the plot. And so the movie's always keeping you in the suspense about where it's going to go in terms of whose subjectivity we're watching in the movie. I think it ends up at a really fascinating place. It's a movie that has a great premise. I mean, when you talk about like an elevator pitch to a movie, a classroom full of kids disappears randomly at 2:17 in the morning. Great one-sentence pitch to this movie. And I think this director really nails it. Okay, this is a movie that actually has a really good explanation for what happened, but it teases you along the way, and it just makes it more interesting and gratifying as you go along in this journey. Zach Cregger has talked about how there are a lot of cinematic inspirations for this movie. Chief among them is Magnolia. And we do get a character in this movie played by Alden Ehrenreich, who actually has a mustache and looks a lot like John C. Reilly in Magnolia, and he's also a cop. But actually, there were a couple other movies that I was thinking too. I was thinking about like the Virgin Suicides in the first like 15 minutes of this movie that has really nice music and narration that talks about the events that happened in our town in the past. And then there's also a little bit of like the sweet hereafter in this movie, which is this, you know, grand tragedy that happens to this classroom full of kids in this community, really trying to figure out like what happened and how to grieve and how to overcome it. Each section of the movie feels like a little bit cinematically different, which I think is really cool. This movie knocked my socks off. Okay. Zach Cregger, I think, announces himself as 90s Tarantino, early 2000s Shyamalan with this movie, okay? I hope he doesn't get pegged onto this whole notion of he only does movies out of order or he only does movies that are like over the top at the end. But man, this guy is so original, and the screenplay is just fantastic in this movie. The performances are wild. I don't even want to say who gives the best performance in the movie because it kind of spoils the movie. This is an actor that appears primarily in the last 30 minutes. You guys know who I'm talking about, but they are wild in this movie. The theater was jazzed up to this movie. This is why we go to movies, people, okay? This is why legacy sequels suck. This is why we love original content. This is why we love auteurs like Zach Cregger, who are willing to take risks with their storytelling and make a story that is dramatic, funny, heart-rendering, and really surprisingly scary at times. A very uncomfortable watch. I said Midsommar because this is the first time since Midsommar that I walked out of a theater and thought, man, this is a horror film that people are going to be talking about potentially for years. I'm at 4 stars for this movie. This guy, I think, he has carte blanche with me. I'm so excited to see what he does next. I know it's Resident Evil, but whatever. Wow. Very impressive movie all around. Great cinematic experience. And I did text Terry, holy shit. I think that could mean a lot of things. That's my reaction to the movie. Holy shit. Always trust Zach. This movie rocked.
Oh, I knew what it meant. I knew what it meant. Todd, where are you at with weapons?
So the interlocking stories thing, it takes a page out of like The Dead Girl. Like, that was like 20 years ago now, but it's like the same type of thing because it's leading up to something, and you see like every character's story and how they relate to it. But there was a we'll call it a piece of flair in the beginning of the movie that completely gives away where the movie's going, and it's not that hard to figure out. Like, the movie has a ton of detours on its way to getting there, and it's still interesting because, you know, Cregger is a good director, but they're all red herrings until you get to what the actual meat of the movie is, which is the end. But I was with an audience that was about a quarter full, and they were laughing at the movie throughout, and I was like, man, I don't think it's that bad. But I mean, it brings into question just how Shyamalan-istic the movie is. Like, it's sort of like an elevated train wreck Shyamalan movie, which is to say the acting and writing aren't complete dog shit, but there are like some really bizarrely, like, unintentionally funny stuff. The characters are fun mostly, except for Justine. She's a total bitch. Like, she gets exactly what's coming to her in the liquor store. Like, she's hard to root for or relate to. There are some parts in the movie that reminded me of like Promising Young Woman, with like the uncomfortable feeling you get watching that movie, but that's all, again, just a diversion until you get to actually what's going on. In that way, it is similar to Barbarian. You have this like most evil thing that's trying to get to, but when you get there, you can't help but beg for something more. Like, Barbarian is totally out of left field and unpredictable as to exactly what you're even watching. And then you feel disappointed that it wasn't more original, but it's still good because Cregger is good. Here, I was hoping for a more meaningful explanation and like something more real, but I also saw it coming at the same time. But the director likes to screw around with the audience. He likes to play with this level of like how he can play with the strings and how how the extent to which the audience is willing to accept those strings that he's playing with. The first 2/3 of the movie are sort of like an investigation, which I think is cool, but in a better movie like Longlegs or something, it taps into something that feels more original rather than recycling just old ideas and tropes, even though it's not all that far removed from that. Plus, it had a Pino winning cage role, and it was just better acting, better performances, better everything there. In the end, this is just a horror movie. Like, I'm getting really tired of this genre. I've reviewed more horror movies on this podcast than probably the total amount of horror movies I've seen in my life combined otherwise. all we get at the movies now is horror movies and superhero movies. The box office is dead. I don't know. I mean, I had 2.5 stars, I guess.
All right. Well, Zach's at 4 stars. Todd's at 2.5 stars. I'm gonna agree with Zach. I'm at 3.5 stars on this one. And it's close to 4, but I'm not quite there. I think this one was intriguing to me because I think all of us looked at Barbarian and said that was surprising. It was kind of a fun movie that I wasn't expecting, and I want to see what this director does next. And he kind of refines his craft a little bit here. I feel like this one is a little more refined.
He stays in the same genre. He doesn't do anything original.
I don't know. I thought this approached it from an interesting perspective. And like Zach said, it's a great elevator pitch, which kind of gets you hooked. And then the tone of the movie just kind of lets you sit there. I was in a theater kind of like you, Todd, that was about a quarter full, and they were in it, and there was laughter, but there was laughter because there were funny moments. It's supposed to be funny.
That's not the experience I had. They were talking and laughing at the movie.
Oh, well, then you had a crappy crowd. I had people that, that were 100% into it. Cregger, I saw on the IMDb trivia page, Cregger had an interview where he said he had to cut some of the jokes from the movie that he thought were funny, but no one laughed at him. I was like, okay, well, if they're not laughing at the jokes, then the jokes aren't worth being there. So we'll only make sure the ones that are the laugh at are there. And one of the other movies he said was an influence on this, which I totally see, is Prisoners, where you have just kind of that what are the police doing and how can I help. The Josh Brolin character kind of falls into like a little bit of the Hugh Jackman character from Prisoners. I feel like this is kind of what Vantage Point wanted to be in how it tells from the different perspectives.
Wow. Rewind that.
That's one of the things I thought of. It's like you get the different perspectives of what happened, but it actually works here because it doesn't like rehash the same events that much. And instead, it just kind of gives you more tidbits around the periphery. I kind of see what you're saying, Todd, in that you kind of see where things were going a little bit, but the journey to get there was so much fun. And I had a blast watching this movie, and it's one that just kind of sticks with you and just gets stuck in your brain and you can't shake it. And yeah, 3.5 stars. This was cool.
Like I said, this is the same thing as The Dead Girl, which also happens to have Josh Brolin in an important role, but you know what the last chapter of the movie is, and you're just waiting to get there. And while everything else is going on, like, but that one has more involvement in it's not for like horror effect.
All right, let's get into spoilers. I want to hear what Todd means. What's the
spoiler alert?
What are you talking about? 30 minutes in that you knew the ending.
It was more like 10 minutes in. It was, it was pretty clear what was going on because, so it was a very bizarre choice of like I said, piece of flair. It was a pin that Julia Garner's wearing that says "Stop bullying," and I was like, oh, okay, so the kid is like getting bullied, and it all has to do with the kid. Okay, got it. And then I was just waiting to get to the kids chapter for the rest of the movie. I was like, okay, obviously the kid is. And then it was like, oh yeah, of course.
Okay, but even in the Julia Garner chapter, you know that there's something up with the kid. But you don't know what.
Not necessarily. You eventually know something's up with the house, but
yeah,
I'm just saying it was clear that like
it goes to the house. I mean, I think that
it was all diversion. All the other everything else could not have happened, and it wouldn't have hurt the story because there's no other story.
But there's no way you could from the pin. First of all, I don't remember the pin, but even if there's no way from the pin that you could get to Amy Madigan. That's just not possible. Okay,
obviously it was witchcraft. Like it was clear. They even said witch. They even wrote witch on the side of the car. It's like obviously there's some weird shit going on with the kid, and we got to wait to get there. And there's witchcraft.
Okay, first of all, Todd, can you at least admit this is the best liquor scene in a movie since Superbad? All right, great liquor scene, great liquor fight, liquor store fight. We need more liquor store scenes in movies. Okay, first of all, that was awesome. You know what? I mean, this movie had thrills. Okay, when Benedict Wong comes running toward Julia Garner, the audience, you could feel it in the audience in the theater. I was
that they didn't watch the trailer.
Oh, I don't remember that from the trailer. There are moments in this movie that were just fantastic. Like, I think the police chase with and I gotta say, I mean, this is gonna be a Pinot nominee for me, but the drug addict guy, Austin Abrams, talk about a great
he's
role.
playing the same character
He's
he did in Wolves.
Okay, well, I didn't see. I didn't.
Very similar. Well, not quite the same character, but a similar character.
Yeah.
Honestly, this movie just felt so original. Actually, the movie that I thought about a little bit too was Elephant, because Elephant also had this structure of, it took place at a school and it is about bullying and it kind of has these multiple perspectives. And I wonder if Cregger used that as an inspiration. But I just feel bad for you, Todd. Honestly, like, there have been times that we've disagreed about movies and I try to, make my case and advocate for you. I'm sorry that you didn't have the experience that I had, because this was on a Thursday night. So fun. Okay. The audience was so into this movie. It was so unpredictable. And it just, like,
this
I
is
love how
for you. You love bad horror movies. Like,
No,
this is what you get. You get go gaga over one of these every year.
This was way better than Longlegs. Okay, the reason it was better than Longlegs is because it had vision. This movie was about an entire community. I love how each section that we see is like cinematically a little different. Like, Julia Garner's section is, it's about grief, but it's also about someone who's a little bit unhinged. Josh Brolin's section is about, it's about kind of a murder mystery sort of thing. The Austin Abrams section is almost like a comedy. I love that. Each section feels distinct in this movie, and where it ends is just crazy. There have been some criticisms of this movie that it feels too like rote or something like that. And I don't see it. Like, this movie develops in such a cool, innovative way. And I think it builds a lot of suspense. I love where this movie lands. I love the culmination of it. Also, a little bit of Midsommar in the fact that, people laughed kind of at the last 20 minutes of Midsommar just because of how batshit crazy it is. This movie's the same way. What this guy is doing is so much more original, so much more interesting, so much more powerful than almost anyone out there. And a good barometer for a movie like this for me, a genre movie, is, could I have written a better script? No way. Okay, this guy really understood the characters in this movie. You get the sense of the geography of the town, which is really fascinating. The jump scares in this movie, I think, are genuinely frightening. It has a sense of dread in this movie that's just awesome. I'm sorry, Todd. I love this movie. This is, to me, elevated horror at its best, and way better than Longlegs. Although it would have been fun to see Nicolas Cage in the Amy Madigan role. I will give you that.
Yeah, she was definitely kind of channeling some Cage.
Who would Nicolas Cage play in this movie?
Yeah,
that's not a hard guess.
I mean, and I was gonna say, when was the last time you thought about Amy Madigan? Like, shout out to her. She comes out of nowhere in this one. Yeah, Todd. I think Todd looked at this movie and said, "Oh, dark, brooding horror. He's trying to be Shyamalan," and immediately decided he wasn't going to like it. And
oh yeah, I'm so predictable.
Yeah.
It's like,
and it's better than Longlegs.
Like,
Longlegs was barely a thumbs up movie, and the only reason it was is because Cage was in it.
That's not true.
This movie,
it's like Oscar Perkins is a great director too.
Yeah, well, I'd take a Cregger movie over Osgood Perkins at this point.
Are you happy if this movie wasn't a Netflix series? Like, because it could have been an American Horror Story season, and it isn't. Because that would have been too protracted, too prolonged. This just takes the best elements of each of those stories, and it feels like a novel. It feels like a Stephen King adaptation. And I think each of the characters is beautifully realized. Really good performances in this movie.
But this is
Julia
exactly
Garner
the
is
opposite
awesome.
of what you said last week about Seven. You said Seven could have been a season of Criminal Minds, and you moved it down to a thumbs down because of that. And here you say this could have been a Netflix season, and you're like, so it's a 4 stars. Cool. That makes sense.
But this movie has vision. This movie is a world. Seven is okay, but like, this movie is not like anything I've seen. So I don't know. I feel bad for you. I don't want to keep defending the movie. You give it 2.5 stars. It's fine, but like, it's an awesome movie. People should see it. People should check it out, especially not knowing anything about it.
Todd wins
beat me every time.
I know.
Especially with the 96% on Rotten Tomatoes, Todd. The world agrees with you.
Yeah, Todd just hates movies like this. So, and I mean, like he hates every Shyamalan movie. So as soon as he compared it to Shyamalan, you knew what it was going to be.
It tries to be like Shyamalan. That's
exactly.
Thing,
and as soon as you had in your head that it's trying to be Shyamalan, you knew that it was going to be bad.
Yeah, it's not bad. I'm giving it 2.5 stars, not 1 star. This isn't old. This isn't The Sixth Sense. This is this is 2.5 stars.
Zach's giving it 4 stars. I'm giving it 3.5 stars. Todd's giving it 2.5 stars. It is in theaters. Everybody's going to see this. But it made like 40 or 50 million this weekend or something like that. It had a great opening. So if you haven't seen it yet, it's there. Go see it.